Hey guys, do you want to run shell scripts and commands from anywhere on your Raspberry Pi? Or are you just tired of having to write out full paths of everything every day or multiple times a day? In this video, I'm going to show you how to use the power of the environment file. Let's start by jumping into a terminal session on your Raspberry Pi, or you can simply just connect to it remotely using SSH. Let's run sudo nano to modify the environment file from the etc folder. You may already have variables stored in here like Java home, for example. Let's leave those alone. The first part we'll be going over is how to easily call a shell script from anywhere on your Raspberry Pi. Let's add the path variable here and set its value to what I've provided for you in the video description. These are common paths that the system typically reserves for all users. But let's try adding a path for another custom folder where we stored shell scripts. This is done by appending a colon followed by a path at the end. And to save changes here, we'll hit Ctrl X followed by Y and then hitting enter. Note that you do need to restart the Raspberry Pi for getting these changes to kick in, because otherwise, if we try to run the shell script that we tried to do in the beginning of the video, it's not going to work because the path we added in the environment file has not kicked in yet. And currently, the only way to run that script is by changing the directory to that path and then calling the script. So let's go ahead and reboot by running sudo reboot. Once your Raspberry Pi is back online, we'll try running the shell script again, and then boom. You can see that I'm not in the path where that script is located, but I can still globally do this from anywhere. And that's just one example of the magic that the environment file can bring. Let's run sudo nano to modify the environment file again for another smart way to use this. You can save things like the path to a family share that you have on the network. This way, regardless of who's using your Raspberry Pi, you don't need to write out the full path ever. Instead, you can just write cd and then use the saved environment variable using the $sign. See? And now you can easily get to those embarrassing family pictures that you've always loved. Let me show you another awesome way to use environment variables by jumping back to that environment file. This time, let's say you need a flag or something that can change from true to false at any given time. In my case, I'm storing a flag called use alternative device. And so I'll use this flag to decide whether my script should use this Raspberry Pi or another one that I have running on my network. Again, there's no need to hard code this in 50 different places. Watch this. This is a Python script that can upload files to my Raspberry Pi. Here, I can use my flag by calling it using the same environment variable that I saved to indicate which device to use. Why is this important? Because now if I jump to a Java application that I have, which does something similar for uploading files, I can use that same environment variable so it can decide which Raspberry Pi device to use, Raspberry Pi 1 or Raspberry Pi 2. So if I didn't use this variable, that would mean I'd need to manually update not just both of these scripts, but potentially 50 other places where I'd need to tell my program to use the other device. So now you must be getting the hang of it and the huge advantage that you can get using the environment file. One more trick that I'd like to share is very simple but yet very helpful. Try to think of situations where you want things to end up in one place, but that never happens. So for example, I typically always use wget to download things on my Raspberry Pi. But the problem is, it always ends up downloading them in the directory where you ran the command. So instead of manually telling it each time what path, I try to just set this myself using a wget default path variable, which becomes my very own downloads folder. So how does this work exactly? Let's say you're running a wget command to download something from GitHub. If you run this using the -p option, you can provide that wget default path variable regardless of which folder you're in. So this way, pretty much everything gets downloaded and dropped in one spot, regardless of however many users you have on your Raspberry Pi. And yes, the big advantage here is that everyone on your Raspberry Pi can share these variables. And don't forget, each time you want to make changes to this file, you do need to reboot your Raspberry Pi, because otherwise they're not going to be available across the system. And that's the beauty of the environment file. So say bye-bye to hardcoding and hello to system-wide environment variables at your fingertips. Thanks for watching, and for more on Raspberry Pi, please consider subscribing to this channel.